Massachusetts Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War held its 24th annual Abraham Lincoln Birthday Brunch on Sunday, February 11th, at Harrington's Pub in Wakefield, Massachusetts. This event celebrated the life of our 16th president and honored his many accomplishments in preserving our Union and putting an end to the scourge of slavery in the United States. Traditionally, the event features local authors with recent Civil War-related publications. This year, author and featured speaker Dr. John D. Warner, Jr. performed a presentation on the little-known 5th Massachusetts Cavalry, the only African-American cavalry unit formed during the Civil War. Dr. Warner, a former Commonwealth of Massachusetts archivist, wrote his dissertation on the subject and eventually published his book, Riders in the Storm, The Triumphs and Tragedies of a Black Cavalry Regiment in the Civil War, further delving into this interesting episode in American history. Joining the Sons of Union veterans from across New England at the brunch were members of the National Society Daughters of the Union, National Society Daughters of the American Revolution, Department of New England Auxiliary to the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War, and Civil War Roundtables of Massachusetts.
He had many, many comments, of course, and he had a great sense of wisdom and wit. In regards to the great book, the Bible, I have but one thing to say. It is the best gift God has given to men. All the good Savior gave to the world was communicated through this book. But for it we not know right from wrong. All things most desirable for man's welfare, here and hereafter, are to be found portrayed in it.
Welcome everyone, all the groups here. Kevin Tucker tells me that this is the largest Lincoln Brunch event and probably one of the largest department events in quite some time. I hope that that portends well for the future, particularly in April where we have our department encampment at Lakeside Inn in Wakefield. And thank you all.
My name is Mary Tedesco, and I'm honored to serve as the regent of the Sergeant William H. Carney chapter of the National Society of Daughters of the Union. Our chapter is about to turn 5 years old, and we're the only chapter of NSDU here in Massachusetts, and we've grown to about 75 members, and we have a number of prospective members. And obviously I'd like to invite all of the ladies here who have descend from a Civil War soldier to please join us. I want to thank Kevin Tucker and the officers of the Sons of the Union Veterans for the privilege of being part of this event. We'd like to return the favor by inviting all of the Sons of the Union and guests, of course, to attend our NSDU National Annual Congress, which is in New Bedford from May 17th through 18th. I have passed along the registration information to Kevin, but I would be happy to email it to anyone who is interested in coming. We'll be doing a wreath-laying ceremony for Sergeant Carney, who is the first African-American recipient of the Medal of Honor, and that will take place again in New Bedford on May 17th. We've invited, of course, the Sons of Union veteran and the Color Guards to join us to participate in that ceremony. The following day is the annual Congress business meeting, luncheon, and then we'll conclude with a banquet. And Lee Blake, who's the president of New Bedford Historical Society, is our keynote speaker for the evening. She's done a lot for the Massachusetts and New Bedford community to preserve African American history in the area and our state. So on behalf of the National Society Daughters of the Union, Sergeant William H. Carney chapter, thank you, Sons, for having us, and we look forward to many years of faith, fellowship, and togetherness in the future. Thank you for the privilege.
Good morning. My name is John D. Warner Jr., Jack to my friends and to the people assembled here. I'm the author of Riders in the Storm, The Triumphs and Tragedies of an African-American Regiment in the Civil War. And I came across this as a graduate student at Boston College. I was doing a history of the Laird Rams, which were Confederate warships being built under false pretenses in England. And the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to the Court of St. James at the time was Charles Francis Adams, the grandson of President John Quincy Adams. And I came across a series of letters from his son, Charles Francis Adams Jr., writing to his father in England about leading his regiment of African-American cavalry into Richmond as the city fell on April 3rd, 1865. And I had never heard this story before. I had been a student of the Civil War pretty much all my adult life. So I was fascinated by the story, and I took this on as a topic for my dissertation. Over the years, I've amended it and wrote and rewrote until I got it right. But in 2020, my son was living in Detroit, and he and I had chatted about the book over the years, and he said, you know, it's kind of a timely topic at this point in what's going on in the country. I think you should put together a book proposal. And I sent it off to Stackpole Books, which was founded by an Army colonel right after the Second World War. It's a military history imprint of Roman and Littlefield. And they bought the manuscript. Too much, I was thrilled. It's a story about working on a project over a long period of time. It was first written as a dissertation in a pre-internet world. So a lot of the sources in the book were unavailable to me because they were kind of hidden in some ways. So a labor of love, if you will. And I will end with saying that recognition of fortitude and commitment and courage has no expiration date. And so this story, the 3rd Regiment of African American troops raised in Massachusetts during the Civil War, has really never been told before. Thank you. Andrew wanted the state that had made history with African American infantry regiments, the 54th and 55th Massachusetts Infantry Volunteers, to carry the social experiment further, black men in uniform on horseback. Riders in the Storm is about the only African American regiment of cavalry raised in the northern states during the Civil War. This black cavalry regiment was officered by some of the scions of the first families of Massachusetts. The story of this alliance between black enlisted men and white officers, their enlistment, training, and combat, deserves to be told after more than 100 years of silence. In fact, the designation of the regiment is only partially accurate. Most of the men were not from the Bay State. And when the regiment reached the seat of war, as the area of operations was called then, through no fault of its own, its horses were taken away. The regiment fought dismounted in the spring of 1864, taking part in the fighting leading up to the siege of Petersburg. After participating in the early part of the siege of Petersburg, the regiment was assigned to the prisoner camp at Point Lookout, Maryland. Confederate prisoners guarded by the 5th Massachusetts kept several diaries and included a talented watercolorist, prisoner of war John Omenhauser. The Confederates' reactions, as recorded in these diaries, range from rage that blacks could be soldiers, let alone cavalrymen, which was seen as an elite branch of the service, to disbelief and the unfounded hope that somehow these black soldiers were still loyal and respectful to their old masters. During the last weeks of the war, the regiment, mounted at last, took the field in the campaign leading up to the Confederate surrender at Appomattox. The 5th Massachusetts was one of the first units to enter Richmond when that city fell to Union forces on 3 April 1865. Retreating Confederates had set fire to supplies to deny them to the enemy. The resulting fire spread and destroyed a great deal of the city. Amidst the devastated capital of the defeated South, the 5th Massachusetts and other African American troops of the 25th Army Corps were greeted as of saviors and avenging angels by members of their newly freed race.